Bleep.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Good Times, the morning after show. My name's Roy Pogorzelski. This is kind of a new show we're doing in our new comedy variety club called Good Times that just opened up in the downtown. Opening night was on January 5th. So for our first show, it's pretty exciting because I got a special friend of mine who came on the show. He's an amazing local comedian to start us off. Lakshjit Gill will be on this show momentarily to chat with us about things about comedy, which are pretty fun. I mean, it's nice to get in the mind of a comedian's brain and hear from them about the art of comedy, which is really exciting. As well, the guest always gets to choose the beer, which is really exciting. So Lakshjit chose Innocent Gun, a great beer from Scotland, oak aged in a barrel. And we had a sponsor, All-in-One Digital, actually sponsored this beer for this show, which is awesome. So I'd like to thank Jeremy McPherson for getting this Innocent Gun for me and Lakshjit to drink here on the Good Times show. So the way it starts off is I want to start off with a weekly recap before I invite my guest on the show. It's been a couple weeks since we opened January 5th, which was a really exciting moment for us, for myself, Paul, Torsten, Trevor, and John, and my brother John. And when we opened up, man, opening night was insane. We sold out the 5, 7, and 9 shows. We had 7 amazing comics from around Western Canada performing on stage and really kind of giving it their all. You know, it was amazing, like, to see the diversity of talent that was on stage that day. So it was really great. And then the even 11 o'clock show was pretty much almost sold out. So we got off to a good start. Then we went to Game Show Trivia Night where we had 2 people show up. And you know, the show must go on. So me and John performed, Paul served, and those 2 people had a great time. But the following week after, we had 7 people. So, you know, optimistically looking, that's a raise in like 60-some% of people who attended Game Show Trivia Night. So we're still building that on Wednesdays. We're going to go to Name That Tune next week. So if you love Name That Tune or Name That Song, come on down to Good Times over here. As well, we're also going to be doing amateur comedy nights. And the first one went really well. We had quite a few people out. We have our local comedians go on stage to practice their craft, test their material, and pretty much just show you a good time, you know. And that's really exciting for us to showcase that. As well as our Friday variety nights. First night we had Jeff Newman, the mentalist, who wowed the audience with his crazy mentalism. He predicted the entire show. I'm just so impressed with him. He's a local mentalist who's traveled the world. He's been to Australia at fringe festivals. He's traveled all over Canada, North America. It was just amazing to have him here in the Good Time space. As well as we had J.R. Matthews, the hypnotist, previous Friday. And last night we were laughing extremely hard at our headliner, Adam Ruby, who was fantastic. And the week before that, Corey Mack did amazing. She sold out her late show. It was just incredible to have these comics. So next week, we've got a roast battle on Friday where we got 8 comics who are going to get on stage and roast each other for roasting supremacy, I suppose, and the first title at Good Times for being the roast battle champion. And of course, on Saturday, we got our headliner, Charles Andrew Payne, who will actually be my next guest on the Good Times the morning after show, and I'm really excited about that. So without further ado, I'd like to bring my first guest ever on this show, a good friend of mine, amazing local comedian, works really hard at his craft, and I certainly appreciate his comedy. So I'd like to invite Mr. Lakshjit Gill. Lakshjit!
Roy?
Welcome.
People are watching. There's one person watching.
Hey, that's one more than 0.
And it might be Torsten.
Hey, there was 2 prior. We had 2, and then they were like, what is this? What is happening here? Oh yeah, I get that going. So like I said, the beer was sponsored by All-in-One Digital, and they're located in our downtown. They're an amazing marketing company, locally based company, and just so transparent and honest with their business practices. I'd go check them out. Jeremy McPherson's a good friend of mine. So thank you, Jeremy, for sponsoring our beer on the show.
Yeah, cheers to All-in-One Digital.
There you go. So Lakshjit, thanks for coming here to be my first guest. So my first question, I guess, for you is, you know, what made you get into the world of stand-up comedy, the crazy world of stand-up comedy?
No, I gotta like give it up to Russell Peters probably. He was the first comedian I ever watched when we first came here. We moved to North Carolina for a year, and I used to torrent his like specials and watch his videos, and we saw them on YouTube as well.
You said torrent.
Yeah.
That's like an old term for like before now.
Yeah, downloading illegally. I think the statute of limitations is out on that.
Yeah, I think there's been some Supreme Court cases or something like that.
It's been like over 7 years. I don't think they can get me for it anymore.
There's no one, after 7 years.
Those laptops don't even work anymore. Nobody has access to how to work those laptops.
No, exactly. So, hey, all I'm going to say is, man, torrent away. Anyways, continue. So Russell Peters.
Russell Peters, yeah. And then I watched him. I never really thought about like doing stand-up, but I was like, I guess maybe it is a possibility. Like it's something that an Indian can do. I see it on TV now. But then I just lived life for another 10 years almost. And then then I like started listening to podcasts with comedians, and they talked about going out to open mics and getting into it. I just decided to go.
Wow. And so what about so Russell Peters, and then I guess he opened the way for someone like Aziz Ansari, who now pretty hot on the scene, right? Or was. I guess now he's even kind of yeah, before many. I guess in comedy it's like one screw up and you're done.
Yeah. No, well, it's not really though. It's gotten like that now. There's like this. I mean, all he had was a bad date, but he was also really weird. So people were, and he was this guy who was a champion of
human rights.
Human rights, and he always claimed about being a feminist and everything. And then it comes out that he was such a weird guy. So I think that's why it was like right. It was like, okay, Aziz, we're not gonna mess with you for a while now.
Well, I think his show. What was his show on Netflix? It was anyway, it was funny.
Yeah,
and then it just
oh
really? It was okay. And then it was good, and then it never happened again. I think season 2, he was in Italy, fell in love with a girl, and no more show.
Yeah.
That's an abrupt end.
Well, that's what happens when you do that to a girl at a date.
Well, and speaking of that, and I completely agree with you. It's a fine line. You'll see comedians get a level of fame, or they go on stage, and you're in front of people. Whether you're amateur or whether you're absolutely professional, there's still a regard for your surroundings. You have to be cognizant of what people are listening to, or how they're interpreting you.
Yeah. To a great extent, yeah. And once you're famous enough, then it doesn't matter. I think there's some comedians where you're so famous or so good, not just famous, but so good that people don't care. Like Dave Chappelle,
right?
People don't care. He can say whatever he wants.
He's got that level of ultimate.
Yeah.
He
got paid $40 million to do comedy.
and we're sponsoring all in one digital and making $15 beers.
Hey, this is my $40 million.
Yeah, this is making it big. I mean, we're on a good time show.
11:15 beer on a Sunday.
That's right. Hey, what's the saying? It's 5 o'clock somewhere. I think that's a thing.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
a short string.
All right. So moving on. So it's cool that someone inspired you to get into comedy. When I see you go on stage, I'm always impressed with your material. I've watched you so much now that I think I can do some of your bits, but I can't deliver them the same.
I always hear you laugh every time too. I'm like, Roy's out here supporting.
Well, it's funny. I mean, it's you're a funny dude. So I'm sitting here I can get behind this. This is funny stuff. And the way it's your facial expression. Sometimes you come up there with the mood where you're you got that hat on that covers your ears. You look like you just came out of the bush. And then you're hey, it's one of those days where you're just all casual. And then there's the other days where you're fired up.
Yeah, that happens sometimes.
Yeah, which is exciting. So that's why I laugh multiple times.
That's really nice to hear that. It really strokes my ego.
I love stroking egos. So let me tell you, Lakshmi,
we got 2 viewers now.
Oh right, well,
Thorsten, are you watching this?
I think Thorsten is still.
No,
watching.
I'm working on it.
Oh, you're working on it.
So Thorsten's working on viewing it. Thorsten's our behind the scenes man. He's monitoring the tech.
He's on his iPad.
Trying to get onto the Wi-Fi to watch our film so that we can take comments. We want to take comments from everybody here as well, but we just can't see it. I've contacted it, they get blurry. I don't know if you can see it from there. We just can't see it.
No, I can't see anything.
So
did somebody type something? Is that green thing? Is that us?
I think that someone is watching, which is really exciting, but I can't see who.
Nice. Trevor?
Maybe Trevor Brown.
Yeah,
oh yeah, one of the owners as well.
Like,
Good
Trevor,
Trevor.
what are you doing, man? This is not the kind of viewers we need. Actually, we'll take any.
So tell me. So on the Good Time Show, like, what excites you about the local comedy scene? I mean, it's growing, I think.
Yeah.
And like, so what excites you about it? What gets you pumped about it?
The most exciting thing is that we're getting really good crowds out weekly now, where local comics can go out on an amateur night on a weekly basis, which was not available in Lethbridge before, and have good time on stage. You can do about 10 minutes. If you're really funny, you can do 15. You just keep going.
Right.
You won't get lit because there's enough time.
Right. And then, speaking of lit, you've seen our big red light bulb.
That thing lets you know you got lit. The audience reacts to it every time. There's a slight gasp from people from the crowd coming on.
Well, they always think it's bad, but it's not always bad.
No, people think there's gonna be a fire. No, it's just the comedian. He's gotta get off stage.
Hey man, you've hit your 10 minutes. It's all good. But so that's the thing. So with comedy, we opened up a club to kind of get the comedic arts out to the community more, to create a space that's safe and inclusive and for anyone to come and enjoy comedy. Because comedy is for everybody.
Right.
But when you give it that label that it's only at this time or for these people, you kind of alienate certain audiences.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And do you feel with your comedy, do you try to make it well-rounded to many people, or is it very directive to a certain audience?
It's very directive to a certain audience because I do comedy in Southern Alberta. It's a lot of white people. And I mean, that's not a bad thing, it's just the reality of where we live, which is fine with me. So I have to tailor my comedy to the likings of white people to a certain extent. I still like to do jokes that I want to do. I'm not good enough to really be crafting everything that fine. But when I'm in front of white people, I try and make jokes a certain way that are racist in the way that they're gonna like it and be okay with it.
Right. So
because that's something you have to deal with. White guilt in an audience is awful.
That is
people
true.
won't take jokes because they're worried about people around them.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Yeah, because it's real, it's raw, right? You can't go on there and pretend that doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm. You can't. No, we're doing comedy. The whole point of comedy is to be as real as you can be, and make people see a perspective that they're not used to. And usually it's a ridiculous perspective. Usually it's not even something I actually believe, but we're just trying to be funny, so we can all just be in there. Because when you laugh, it's not something you do voluntarily.
That's right. No,
It comes out at you and you can't stop it because I know that because people have dumb laughs like I do, and you can't stop yourself from laughing because if something's funny, something's funny. So when I'm on stage and I'm trying to make people laugh, most of the time I have no idea what I'm doing at all.
That's awesome.
Because you can do the same joke in two different sets, and it kills, and the other set it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, and that's you're very true in that. Say you go up there and you just nail a bit and everyone's just losing it, right? And then you go into another room in the same bit, maybe delivery's a little off, maybe someone threw you off in the crowd, they yelled some dorky remark, which we've seen.
Yeah.
It's been good,
Yeah.
but
and you started off too mean or something because somebody tried to heckle.
Right.
There's so many things you do to mess up your own set because somebody else came in. But that's what pros do. That's why we have professionals coming on Saturdays.
Right.
Who are gonna who have the experience of years of comedy to deal with everything.
Right.
That's
So
what's amazing about those shows, right? As an amateur, I can be funny in moments, I can be funny in sets, but I'm not good yet. Those guys are good. Those guys have had the experience to be good. Because you just have to have experience. Yeah.
Well, you've been doing this now for what I'd say 2-3 years, maybe.
No.
Not even 2-3 years.
No, a year and 3 months, 2 months. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive, man. When you think about where you've come, I think I saw.
It is Lethbridge though.
It is, but I find that people here are looking to laugh. And when they come to Good Times, from just the 2 weeks that we've had shows, people come here and they're here for comedy.
Right.
It's not like comedy showed up where they were eating.
Right.
It's
right,
I'm eating this, chalupa, and then Lakshjit Gill's on stage.
I have done that before.
Right. We've had a few of those moments, right? And it's people will sit there and they'll be like, what the? And they want to talk about life.
Yeah. No, it's awful when you do comedy in front of an audience that wasn't there for comedy. We did that at a local place here, and they were having a music open mic, and we convinced the guy, hey, can we open your show up with 2 comedy sets? He's nice, he let us. And I opened and I did 5 of my dirtiest comedy. And it was it was just so dirty. First joke was dirty, didn't hit, and I was like, I guess I'll do 4 more minutes of this.
Right.
I could have chosen to not do that and done so much better.
Yeah.
But for some reason, in the moment, you just don't like connect sometimes because you're not experienced enough, so you don't make the connection and you just like flow through your set without even thinking about it.
That's right.
And you just bomb.
And you know comedy's going good when the comic stops to acknowledge you when you walked into the stage space. Like, you just know that set is nailing it, right? So it's like, oh, hey, how's it going?
That's
You're
true.
Like, hi!
That's true. Nobody like destroying a room with a bit is gonna stop in the middle of it to talk to the guy walking
in, right?
For the most part.
That's awesome. Well, no, that's great. So, again, if you want to make comments and ask Lakshjit questions, we're open to that. Thorsten, are you logged in? No, he's still having.
You want me to log in, Thorsten?
I think we'll get Lakshjit to log in on his phone. But if you have any comments or questions for Lakshjit, this is an opportunity to ask a local comedian some questions. So moving on, as Lakshjit kind of logs into his phone and gets the live stream going, I just wanted to ask you another question here about challenges. Like you said, you're an Indian comic. With that comes a different level of responsibility in comedy. It's not like you can just walk on stage and not be cognizant of the surroundings or what's being said.
Right.
So what challenges and barriers have you faced? Not even as a a person of color in comedy, but as just a comic in general. Like, what have you found have been some of those challenges?
The hardest thing for me is to feel like I'm not being hacky, because no comedian wants to be hacky. So even if I'm doing Indian jokes, I don't want to be hacky. I'm sure I do hacky bits, I'm sure I do hacky jokes because I'm just new, but I'm trying hard not to be hacky.
Right.
So I have no
Explain
problem.
hacky for viewers that really don't know what that means.
If you're
tacky or hacky or
no, hacky would be like dad jokes. You know?
Oh, yeah.
Right? That's like an extreme version of a hacky joke. It's a joke everybody's done already. That's what a hacky joke is. It's been hacked over and again.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I don't want to do that. So I try not to. And I lived 14 years of my life in India. And I moved here and I still have Indian parents and I'm still Indian. So my life is Indian.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I'd like to talk about it. Right? So I'm never worried about people thinking that he's just using his Indian shit. I'm not gonna worry about
Well, that's who you are.
Yeah.
You're telling unique stories that kind of have a cultural flavor to it. You know what I mean? And I for one certainly appreciate it.
Right.
When you see the scene and everyone makes the joke. It's like they look out in the crowd. And they're like, this is a super white crowd. I've heard that a ton of times. And it's like and to some degree, yeah. But it's it's okay because everyone in that crowd, they could be different ages, different faiths. There's still a lot of diversity in the audience.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not to that level of culture, right? And that when I see that brought to the stage, I really appreciate it in comedians when they can bring a story with it.
Right.
Your move to Canada always makes me laugh. The American Pie bit. Or and I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, the weirdness around airports. I always lose my mind at that bit because I'm just and everyone does. It's funny.
Right. Thank you.
And I'm not gonna give away the bit because
you gotta come out and
come and see that.
The two people that are watching, which is one Trevor, who's probably watched it a lot also.
hey, there will be more of that view later. Trust me.
I never catch live shows. I always watch them after.
You scroll through and you're like, oh, what's this?
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, hey, we'll see. We'll see how many views we get on show number 1.
Somebody will look at this at 2 o'clock and they'll be like, I can't believe they're drinking right now. And then they'll realize, oh, it was at 11.
It was 11:15 that the show started. Well, hey, like they say, I'm a fan of beer, and I'm glad you chose a good one. That was kind of nice.
This is tasty beer.
Well, because on the show, like I said, I'm getting whatever the guest wants to drink. So if the guest wants kombucha, I'm gonna drink me some kombucha.
I don't even think you're saying it right. I think it's kombucha.
Kombucha?
Kombucha.
Kombucha.
You never say it like that. Why'd you put that emphasis on it?
Either way, I would drink the bucha. Yeah, bucha's bucha. But I will drink it is what I'm saying.
Right.
But yeah, and or chai latte or Americanos.
You know what? Next time you get me on, I'll make you some homemade chai and I'll bring it.
Really?
It'll blow your mind.
Oh,
You'll
that
be
would
like,
be-
oh, I've been having syrup my whole life.
Oh,
That's-
most
that's
likely,
what-
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and like I would love that. That would be appreciative. I mean, Innocent Gun is also so great.
It
so
is.
maybe for that episode we'll have a chai and
Oh.
a product.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, and we'll like
Somebody can sponsor my chai. Pay me.
sponsor. There you have it. If you
I'm
want-
the first paid guest on this show.
Yeah, I can't wait till we get to the level of where we can pay our guests, $15. Even a McDonald's brekkie would be like a good payment,
I have to bring my own junior chicken today.
But I guess technically this is a payment. You're being paid one beer.
Oh, this is amazing payment.
Yeah, so you're not an amateur anymore.
To my wife, I was like, oh, I gotta go to the club. I got work to do.
Well, technically it's work. I mean, you're starring on a future hot show.
Right.
This is gonna pick up big
This is gonna
time.
be amazing. This is gonna be the premier show in Lethbridge.
the good because Good Times the morning after. What does that make you think of?
Hangovers mostly.
Yeah, the morning after. That's true. I mean, it's the morning after ... So I'll let you fill in
Right.
the blank.
Right.
But I will not fill in the blank for you. So if that makes sense.
I don't know. Thorsten's like
I
making
think
signals.
Thorsten.
Right there. 7 people watching.
All right. Hey,
It's too
man.
much pressure. I can't do this anymore.
Well, you're a celebrity, so
Shout out to All in One Digital.
All in One
Beers.
Digital sponsoring our beers on the show. We've been talking, just to recap, we've been talking with Lakshjit. He's been amazing. He's been answering a lot of my crazy questions. But I got another question here. I think a lot of people I find out, they say I can do comedy. In fact, we were here one night when some guy was extremely intoxicated on many a fermented barleys, and he comes running out and he's like, "Dude, I can do this!" And he drags me into the main area outside the door, and
The
he
bathroom.
starts, the bathroom. I didn't want to say it. And he starts yelling in my face about his bit, and it was just the worst bit I've ever heard in my life. I was like, dude, you are drunk. Like, shut up and just get back in there. He did not shut up. He was our first. We had to relieve of his duties as a patron in the audience.
Right.
Unfortunately, we didn't want to.
I was hosting that night, and
You were?
Yeah, and he was heckling bad. And it was a good shutdown though.
But you
And
did well with that.
Yeah, no, I told him he was embarrassing his girlfriend. And she started laughing.
Well, I mean, you come for date night, you get sloppy, and then you start yelling at comics on stage. Like, who does that, right?
Yeah.
But I guess it happens. And it was a good test for us. It was a good stress test. And you handled it well. Dambra handled it well.
He was gone by the time Dan.
All right, Dambra went out on the stage to go after him. I
Yeah,
think.
and you had already kicked him out.
Right. Well, it wasn't me. I wasn't around. I think that was more like the bigger pogo.
And he just left his girlfriend here.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I think he didn't leave her. She just didn't want to go with him.
Oh.
I think there's a difference with that. It's like when your boyfriend got to the point of inebriation that he had to yell at talented comedians to get attention from an audience that was like, we hate you right now. Like the hate in that room was insane.
Yeah.
And then to be asked to leave, not even really bounce, asked politely to leave.
Right.
Many times, and then your girl, and then he's like, I'm out of here, and then his girlfriend's sitting there, and it's like, what do you do? Do you leave with this guy, or do you?
I would. I'd stay right there.
Now that was
Yeah.
I wonder what the morning after was there.
Exactly. That's what we want to hear about. We should try and get hecklers back here for the morning after
So,
show.
a heckler gets kicked out, we'll bring him back for the show. Hey man, you heckled so hard last night, what was in your brain? What?
We interview them in their hangover and ask them why they made these decisions.
Yeah, you were heckling something fierce, man. Well, he was going off the charts.
Right.
And we didn't even know how to handle it. We weren't even prepared for that level of heckle. I think the dude probably went for dinner and just had he probably was so excited he gulped down 4 pints.
I think he was partying that night.
Yeah, he was definitely a partier. And he thought he was a comic. So that leads me into my next question actually, is I've heard from so many people. And I don't call myself a comic. I think I'm fairly funny, but I'm not a comic. I'm a fan of comedy.
Right.
But then you have other people who are like, I can do it. And I think that's a large percentage of people in their minds think that they can go on stage and do stand-up comedy. And for me, it's I want everyone to try. I certainly do.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, what advice would you give to people wanting to try comedy, or if they think that they can do it?
Yeah.
What advice would you give to these people?
I always say, think about the funniest story you tell to people when you meet them for the first time. Like when you make new friends, or if you meet new people, what's your story that you tell that you get the most laughs out of? You have the beats figured out. People like don't realize it, but they repeat just the same story to different people. So figure out which one's your best one. Take that on, like revise it, rewrite it, and then take it on stage in like 2 weeks, and you can do well with it. And if you don't have one, then maybe think about being more social and coming up with stories.
Get out a bit more, like doing it. Well, yeah, because I mean, like, comedy is a form of storytelling.
Yeah.
You know, like you're looking at a moment in your life that was probably relatively embarrassing,
Right.
and you're coming on stage with a twist,
Yeah.
and you want to leave the audience kind of hanging on the edge of their seat, right?
Right.
And so, have you ever had it where you go to a party and you're introduced as a comedian, and then everyone's like, "Okay, funny man, tell me a joke now."
It hasn't happened at parties, but it has happened when I tell people that I do stand-up comedy. They're like, tell me a joke. And I'll just won't say anything.
Is that when you come up with a daddy joke? You just sound like the worst.
Yeah, the dad joke. It's not the daddy joke.
Well,
Who calls dad jokes daddy
it
jokes?
could be a daddy joke.
Right. Why
It
is
could be
it
a daddy
dirty?
joke. I'm not making it dirty. You're making me sound dirty, and I appreciate that.
No, you said daddy jokes. That's
Kombucha,
Yeah.
daddy. But
That's gonna be a PG-13 show.
oh, it's definitely it's 11 o'clock. Yeah, it's PG. It's
11
definitely
o'clock.
PG. I think there's some parental guidance. But
Yeah, it is Facebook.
but like so in the future, like you obviously have dreams for this, or you're not just gonna be an amateur your whole life. Like you have bigger aspirations. Like tell me a bit about those.
It's so not viable to even think about them. I like to just like I have I work on my comedy and I try and write it and try and get better and try and do as much time on stage as I can, and just learn as much as I can from like professional comedians when I do get to meet them here now, which was not an opportunity I had in Lethbridge before.
Right.
So now that I get that opportunity, I try and just learn from them as much as I can, and I'm sure I make mistakes along the way. And I'm hoping that they can point them out to me and I can like get better.
That's awesome.
Because there's some basic
awesome.
things that you just don't do in comedy. Just don't ruin shows.
Yeah.
But as an amateur, you do that all the time. You get up on stage and you'll ruin a show.
Yeah, you'll kill the room.
Yeah.
The
People do
next
all the time.
comic's gotta come up, and I think that's why my our good friend Jordy goes first all the time.
Because he likes to kill rooms?
No, he doesn't want to be. No, he doesn't want to be behind. So like, I don't know. We gotta ask Jordy if he. But I don't think he likes to be behind.
No, I completely agree. And
People that kill a room.
He's always good at opening too.
Yeah.
He always gets the room going.
He's consistent, and you know what I love? Like, so in amateur comedy, you'll hear the piece from a lot of people. Well, I've seen all the amateur comics. They do the same material, so I don't really want to come out and see the same stuff all the time.
Right.
So you're looking for new comics, or you're looking for new material. But like at the same time, for a comic, like stage time in Lethbridge has traditionally been tough.
Yeah.
And so you got to repeat the same jokes to kind of see what works and what doesn't.
Kind of. What I'm focusing on now is not doing the stuff that I would do at a show that I'm getting paid at. Like as much as I can, especially here. This regular night here, I'm trying to work on as much just new material as I can.
Yeah, the stuff you think of like.
Yeah, and it's hard. Sometimes you fall back to old material because you wimp out on stage. Sometimes you just want to get laughs because you're not doing. Yeah, sometimes and then you'll just bomb with your good stuff, and you're like, why did I even try?
Man, you brought up a really good point there. So I've done comedy on stage maybe 3 times.
Right.
4 times, I think.
Right.
And
I've been there for I think 2 or 3.
for a few of them, yeah. And I went on the Ales and Tales stage, and I just bombed hard.
I think it was the necklace. You were wearing that like shark tooth necklace.
Yeah, everyone was like, "Who's this? Who's this guy?" When I went up there and I told like my hemorrhoid joke.
Yeah.
It's not very funny. I realized that night, like, and that was a good realization for me when it was just like silence. When you tell the joke, like I experienced this. It's like I think every comic's worst nightmare, and I experienced it, and it really gun-shied me from even doing it again.
It breaks your heart every single time.
Oh my god!
You just feel like the worst person ever.
Everyone looks at you. It's like no one empathizes with your situation. They're like, you're.
No, it's worse when they do though. It's worse when there's like, oh. Like, don't give me an aw. Now I'm gonna have to like go home and write about this in my diary.
Well, and you know, like starting out with a joke is paramount. You got to go and hit the stage with some of your funniest stuff, right? Because if you don't hit right away, you got to try to bring the crowd back, and they're already like, "Who's this hack?"
But on an open mic, I'll do that sometimes. I'll just go up with all new stuff, and I won't worry about like bombing, because you just have to bomb sometimes.
Tell us about
go
it.
through it.
Tell us about our viewers who are going to watch this and everybody. Tell us about and if only if you want to, consent, of course, on every question I ask. But like, tell us about your worst bomb, the one that was like made you reconsider comedy.
I think the one that got me the most depressed by far was the fourth time I did comedy. It was at the Owl in Lethbridge. Michael Moses was hosting, and I went up and I did this material. Michael's really funny.
Yeah, he's a funny guy.
Michael started the show and he killed for like 15 minutes. Like he opened really well as an MC.
No, that was a long time ago.
That was like a year ago.
Oh, wow.
That was like my fourth time doing comedy.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
tell me.
And that was my first time like bombing. and I went up and I did some material in the beginning that was like about 2 to 3 minutes that did all right. I got some chuckles out of it, I got some laughs. And I did this bit about monkeys. We'll leave it at that. That's this is face monk.
And it just did not go over well.
No, I bombed really hard. And
What did you do after? Did you just get off stage, or did you try to fight through it?
no, I did a 7-minute set. Like instead of doing like a 4-minute set as I was planning, I did 7 minutes. And
So you went longer?
Just digging myself in. Like I got this like I'm not even gonna talk about it, but I bombed in a way that if it was recorded, which it is.
Someone's got this bombing video.
It seems like I'm pretty racist.
Oh shit! So you
By the
tested the
end.
boundaries.
Kind of.
Yeah. Well, and it's tough too. Like who was it last night?
Not really racist, but not the best.
Right. Your delivery was off, and you maybe didn't think it through or something like that. But it was Brian. David Duke was hosting last night for our show. And he said to me, comedy's like still a rare form of free speech, because when a comedian's on stage, they have complete control over the discussion and the dialogue,
Right.
and there's limit testing.
Right.
And I mean, it can go very bad, which in even times accidentally very bad,
Yeah.
or it can go extremely well.
Yeah.
And
I just gotta say, anytime you see a comedian on stage, for like 99% of the time, they're just trying to be funny. If you find something offensive, they're not, like, they don't, for the most part, they don't believe it.
of course,
Like, especially like guys who are like regularly funny, or guys who are pros, if they're taking something on stage, they're just trying to be funny. If you don't find it funny, don't laugh. But you don't have to like get offended.
yeah, I see what you mean.
I don't know why people internalize other people's words so much.
And it is true. Like it's all social media based, right? Like we've come to a time where like Gillette launches a commercial that is like, show, and it's a good idea. But like you look at their other ads where they're like very chauvinistic in every ad they've ever put out.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden they put out this ad to sell Gillette razors.
And I'm like, okay, so let's
Really?
you spend all these years doing this, and suddenly, without even like making us like a gradual like progression, they just go, we're just gonna capitalize and sell as many razors as we can.
Yeah, and I think they were following like the Colin Kaepernick Nike campaign.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh my God, Nike started selling like millions and millions of pairs of shoes because they took on the Kaepernick like Black Lives Matter movement.
Right.
But Nike's been doing, like you said, a progression of ads.
I don't understand why people don't recognize that these companies are just using them. Like whatever movement they come up with or whatever, these companies just use them and just sell more stuff and make more money.
Well, that's what I'm
That's
saying.
all that happened.
Yeah, from a form of media, the sensitivity around it all is, and that's where like when you come to comedy, I've been to a lot of shows over the past, a lot of shows. I follow my brother around sometimes, even to some really weird rooms, and I see like every comic testing material out. Some works, some doesn't. There's a fine line. I mean, but even for the comic, like a good comedian can hit those limitations or hit those boundaries and still bring it back to be funny, and the audience can appreciate it. But then you've got these like comics who I think they are they're just using the stage to be racist. Do you know what I mean?
That happens. And you know what? The audience recognizes that.
Yeah, they do.
Sometimes, hey man, whatever. If you offend an audience so hard that they're gonna boo at you, you were not funny.
That's right.
Okay, you can say it's the audience's fault, but you were there doing that show. So in that show, you failed.
That's right.
That audience did not laugh at you. You didn't have the capability to make that audience laugh.
That's right. And they're paying money
Yeah.
to come for a laugh.
Right.
And I think that's because laughter reduces stress, no doubt. Like when you're out just like free mind laughing.
You know what? How much I think about laughter, I don't think it helps me in my life.
Well, that's because you're the deliverer of laughs. You go out there trying to make others.
It's mostly anxiety.
Well, no, and so Lakshjit, I think we're coming down to the end.
We finished our beers. Like,
Yeah.
we can't continue talking with empty glasses.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's good times, and no, I want to really extend a large thank you to Lakshjit for spending his Sunday morning with me. Amazing local comedian. You are opening up at one of our headlining shows.
This next week, actually, Saturday, Charles Andrew Payne.
Charles Andrew Payne.
Yeah.
So Lakshjit will be on stage performing, opening up for the very funny as well, Charles Andrew Payne, and he'll be on the show prior to his getting on stage. So I'm really excited about that. And so please come down next week. Come check out Lakshjit.
If I can plug my Instagram.
Do it.
Follow me at
Yeah.
Laksh211, LAKSH211.
Holy man. Okay, yes, do that. If you can remember that, do that.
Listen, you don't want it to be Lakshjit Singh Gill. Like, nobody's gonna get that.
But not just like Lux 27.
Why? 211 isn't good enough for you?
Well, 211's a little. That's good. It's good. It's almost binary.
Almost binary. That's what I like to go for.
So yeah, come down, get a ticket to Charles Andrew Payne. You get them online at www.goodtimesyql.com. You can also follow us on Facebook or Twitter. And follow Lakshjit. He tells jokes on his Instagram, which is pretty funny. And again, we're just really excited that you watched the show. Come check it out.
How many viewers are we closing at? 6?
Wow.
This is a strong finish.
Cheers to you all,
Finish
man.
that beer.
I appreciate that.
We'll go get some out.
So anyway, tune in next week for Charles Andrew Payne. This has been Good Times, the morning after with Roy and Lakshjit Gill. I don't have a clothesline yet, so I'll figure out work on that.
Let the good times roll.
Let the good times roll. Till next time.
Let's stop it. I don't know how this stops.